In Season 5 of Game of Thrones, we were introduced to the Faith Militant, a radical sect of the Faith of the Seven who serve as a religious army. There have been many references to the Seven all across the seasons of the show, as it is the dominant religion of Westeros, but it's rarely been expanded on in the TV show, and that's where we come in. The Seven is a single being made up of 7 aspects, which of course is very similar to the idea of the Holy Trinity in Christianity. And you may notice that the Faith actually operate very similarly to the Catholic Church, because George wears his influences on his sleeve for this one. I could make a parallels episode about this, but it's too obvious. The 7 aspects are as follows. The Father. He represents judgment and other fatherly stuff that a patriarchal society associates with men. And given this is a patriarchal society, it seems that he's seen as the head of all the other aspects. You pray to him if you want justice. The Mother, a representation of motherly things and nurturing and whatnot. You pray to her for baby stuff and compassion and forgiveness and all other stuff seen as inherently womanly. The Warrior. This one's pretty easy to get. Strength, courage, victory in battle, all that stuff. You pray to him if you want that. The Maiden. She represents innocence and chastity. This is the aspect all little girls are supposed to pray to and embody. You ask her to protect a young lady's virtue, which is a nice way of saying make sure she stays a virgin until we say she shouldn't be. The Smith. This is the aspect you pray to if you want to get work done. So you know, nobles usually don't have any reason to pray to him, because they're rich and lazy. And that's what I was getting at. The Crone. She has the same role any woman over 50 is given in Hollywood. She represents wisdom, and you go to her when you need guidance. Not really good for anything else. The Stranger. The Stranger doesn't seem to have a gender. At least I haven't seen anything referencing a specific gender. It represents the unknown and death. People usually don't pray to this one much, cause it's creepy. It scares people. It's embodiment of death. It's creepy. And that's it for all 7 aspects, but we're not done yet. Male devotees of the faith are called septons, and females septas. They basically work the same as Catholic priests and nuns, and their place of worship is called a sept. The high septon is the equivalent of a pope, and like in real life, it doesn't appear a woman can become one. There are also the Silent Sisters, septa devoted to the stranger who handle bodies of the dead for funerals and whatnot. Warrior Sons, knights who renounce all lands and titles and wander Westeros in service of the Seven. Poor fellows, lightly armored footmen who escort pilgrims between septs. Begging brothers, basically just wandering preachers. Contemplative brothers, septons who take a vow of silence and live in a monastic community called the Septry, basically an entire town of monks headed by a leader called an elder brother. If you want to read about the Seven in Westeros, well, you first have to be someone privileged enough to know how to read. But if you meet that requirement, you can read the 7-pointed star, which is both the symbol of the faith and a holy text. Each of the 7 is presumed to have their own book within it, but George hasn't revealed everything about the 7-pointed star yet. One thing you probably remember is the trial by combat. This seems like a dumb practice, right? All someone has to do is know a better fighter and they win. Well, you're right, it is a bad idea, but it's not as bad of an idea if you honestly believe in the 7 and that they actually influence the world, which, the people of Westeros generally do. The idea is that the 7 will decide guilt or innocence by granting victory to the fighter who is on the just side. This is why whomever loses the trial by combat can't argue against the verdict.
Oh, I'm sorry, do you not believe in the 7? Blasphemy!
The faith of the 7 comes from the Andals, a group of men that sailed into Westeros many years after the first men. And when I say sailed into, I mean invaded. The old gods, the pagan gods of the children of the forest, was the dominant religion before the Andals came and changed all that. It eventually worked out, however, with the Northerners keeping their old gods and people didn't like wearing coats all the time worshipping the 7. And when the Targaryens invaded, they actually ended up adopting the faith themselves, which seemed to be more of a political move than anything else, as it caused the High Septon to command the Faith Militant at the time to not resist their invasion. However, down the line, the Targaryens legitimately adopted the faith, and many devout Targaryens existed, the most famous being King Baelor the Blessed. Baelor was an intensely devout man and would have been better off being a Septon rather than a king, but whatever. The dude ended up fasting himself to death, like a dummy. Now, you may have noticed that I actually brought up the Faith Militant before, and yeah, the Faith Militant was not a new thing, believe it or not. It was established long before there was ever one king of Westeros. However, they fought a war against the Targaryens for reasons it would take too long to get into right now, and part of the eventual peacemaking was an agreement that the Faith Militant would be disbanded. For hundreds of years after, the Faith Militant was no longer a thing until Cersei decided to resurrect it. Like a dummy. With the Faith Militant rising again and gaining tons of support from the small folk, it seems a civil war is at hand in King's Landing. Will the faith be eradicated, or will they finish the job they started hundreds of years ago? I don't know. But if you have a theory, why don't you tell us in the comments below? I'd love to read about it.